Lots of things for you to do today. So the Clio Chilcot is one thing to look at that's new, that most of you have not seen. When Linda Smith Chafee and I were emptying her parents' house, this painting was in their dining room. And it's a painting of a shipwreck with granite on it. And Smith Granite Company bought the granite, unloaded it. So we had to then go back and unload the whole story. So the whole story is there. The second thing is the 1884 stone. Most of you recognize this building. And we were fortunate enough to be gifted that stone. Hugh is going to present a program about it this afternoon. And then we can all go outdoors and, ooh, ah, because Harry Brockland has mounted it. We are debuting our self-guided tours. We're going to give you a piece of paper out at the desk, ask you to go through and give us the pluses and minuses, what we've done, what we need to improve, whether it's the placement of the sign, the wording, whatever it is. We'd like to have your feedback. You're all guinea pigs today, except for Maureen. So, the Westerly Historical Society, come on in, folks, grab a seat. I'm still doing the announcements, so you're all set.
Come in, there's chairs up front, a whole bunch of chairs.
So the Westerly Historical Society has a special exhibit of Westerly athletics in the Isaac Smith room in the museum house. It's wonderfully done, and I think you'll get a kick out of the gym suit and the some of the other artifacts that are there. It's kind of fun. We have some DVDs on the table that are gifts to you. Take as many as you want. We've got more down cellar, so we can get more if you decide you want to hand them out as Christmas presents. It's the DVD that was done of the Granite Westerly story that showed on PBS and all across the country. So if you still have a DVD player, take copies. They're free. June 8th is our next program. It's on Melville's Civil War poetry, 2:00 here, Sunday afternoon. June 25th, we are reprising our downtown tour, which is it's very popular every year. It's the Granite Buildings downtown. We meet downtown. It's about an hour, and it's a lot of fun. July 8th is our new cemetery tour, which is the Old Town plot, some monuments in between, and then what we're not supposed to call the Witch Stone, but which everybody does call the Witch Stone. So that will be July 8th. That will be repeated again in August. There's a rain date on the website. Before you leave today, if you're so inclined, stop in at Joshua's store. That will be open out here. There are plenty of us wearing name tags. We'll be able to answer questions for you and take a look at the granite exhibit while you're here. Does any of my Babcock-Smith house family have anything else I should have said? Well, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Hugh Barton, who is our researcher extraordinaire, and he's going to give us a short program. We're not trapping you forever here for 3 hours. A short program on the 1884 stone.
So welcome. Yeah, this is meant to be about a 10, 15-minute talk to just tell you about the history of the Smith Granite Company building, since we were recently given the gift of the 1884 stone, which you see in this. And it is mounted on the side of Joshua's store if you haven't seen it yet outside. And I, of course, always forget to bring my name tag from. I am on the board of this museum. So there was a store before the stone building that the 1884 stone comes from. And this is a picture of that store. And in the museum archives, in the basement, we actually have receipts. These are from 1858, I believe, both of them. Made out to Orlando Smith for the top one is spices, and the bottom one bought of Green and Anthony um, wholesale dealers in boots, shoes, and rubbers. So you see the range of items that they had even back in the 1850s in the original store building. But then the new store got built and dedicated in 1884. Now, 2 years later, in 1886, the Providence Journal published a very long article, which I'm showing you some here, talking about the granite industry in Westerly, and it is an extremely positive story from the point of view of the companies. The granite cutters at Westerly, this third headline, they are satisfied with the present rate of wages. It's a long article. It's several columns in the newspaper, and it has a whole section about the company store, which was quite a surprise. I only discovered this, I think, sometime last year. The company runs a store where the greater number of the employees trade, though on the men's envelopes there is printed a statement to the effect that they are expected to trade at the company's store. There is nothing compulsory about it. They can trade where they please, but as the store is convenient and as the prices are as low as elsewhere, the goods of quality equal to those that can be purchased elsewhere, the employees naturally trade with the company. And it goes on, and we're going to follow some of it. And here's a photograph of the store with several, I assume, the employees who worked at the store outside of it. The clerk very courteously escorted the inquirer, that is the writer of this article, about and answered his questions very willingly. On the first floor, in the main store, is the grocery department: cloth, prints, boots and shoes, etc., and generally all the articles that are needed in the house or for personal wear. The store was very clean and showed much care in the arrangement of goods. At the rear of the room, and we'll continue on the next slide, but I want you to look at this photograph and note that in the front of the store you have a door, and then you have double windows on either side. And on the side of the store, you have 3 windows leading down to 2 doors where you see a horse-drawn cart parked, and there's actually a window beyond that. But these are fairly solid stone granite walls, except for those windows in the side of the building. So at the rear of this first floor room is the meat market, where an immense icebox, nearly as wide as the building itself, was filled with meats of all kinds. And of course, they really meant an icebox with ice to keep the meats cold. The room overhead, so you see the second-story window in the dormer there, is used entirely as a storeroom and is filled with the stock which may be needed at any time. And again, this is a photo of the side of the building, and you see that there are just these fairly small windows in the side of the building and the couple of doors. So going on about the room upstairs, the article says, while in one corner, half a dozen life-size models in plaster reposing against the wall give variety and a somewhat unique effect in the general appearance of the room. Now, we don't have any photos of the inside of the store. You know, I've shown you several photos, and I'll show you a couple more of the outside of the store. But we do have photos of the cutting shed, the Smith Granite cutting shed, which you see in the back on the wall, these plaster models, the life-size plaster models. So it gives you some idea of what it looked like in that room upstairs where you had these plaster models as sort of the decoration for the room. And of course, along the bottom here in the front, you have the models in use for the cutters who are actually transferring and cutting those plaster models now in the granite. Here's a photograph from the 1885 Labor Day Parade. This was the first Labor Day Parade in Westerly. There's a huge front page article in the Westerly Sun about it. And this is obviously a picture of the store with the Smith Granite float with, again, a plaster model in the front and all these oxen. This is an article that's in the archives of the museum, and it's not dated, and the source is unidentified. We simply have the clipping that I've photographed for you here. Now, we know it has to be after 1884 because it's got a drawing of the stone store. And this article is rather different in tone than the previous article. Last Saturday's conference was held between the committee of the Pavers Union and the committee of the Granite Employers at the Dixon House, etc. At the quarry of Orlando Smith, who, by the way, was elected as the first representative from Westerly to the General Assembly, things are in a deplorable condition. So this is clearly a union-oriented description. On the best authority among the workers themselves, it is said there are men employed on these works that never see a dollar of their earnings from year to year, every dollar being taken up in goods in the company store in which they are virtually obliged to trade. So a very different tone than the article from the Providence Journal. In the museum archives, we have this wonderful account book about this big from 1898, Joseph T. Saunders, with the Granite Company store, and shows all kinds of things, bags of flour, pork, etc., being purchased. 1899, so remember 1884 is the stone, is the dedication of the store. 1899, so 15 years later, this story in the Westerly Sun, which says that Frankenstein and company of this town have purchased of Lorne M. Cook, the receiver, the large stock of dry goods, dress goods, fancy goods, and small wares carried in the company store of the Smith Newell Granite Works at the time the store was closed. So this was the sort of aborted merger of Smith and Newell, and the store clearly was closed. The stock was all sold off at that point. Now, I looked in the Westerly directories for the years after, and there's a variety of things seen. There's no listing in 1900. 1901 to 4 directories indicate that Edmund Arnold is a grocer at 92 Grant, which is the address of that building. So there was a grocery store. Then from 1905 to 12, there are no listings. In 1913 to 14, John Guazzoni is shown as a grocer there. So it's not clear whether the store was vacant for periods of time or it was an active store, but it just isn't listed in the directory. I just don't know. What we do know is that in 1919, there was a new use, and it became the Granite Street Garage. And the Pensiero brothers and J.J. Gourlay advertised in 1921 for all the repair work that they'll do on cars. In 1925, they're selling the revolutionary Hupmobile. And I chose that advertisement because I'd never heard of the brand Hupmobile. 1932, they're now selling a brand we're more familiar with, Pontiacs. 1937, they sell Packards. 1939, they're advertising that they're now selling Esso gas. So they've now become a gas station, not just a store, an automobile or dealership. Yes, so notice the big hole in the front. Thank you for pointing that out. I meant to and I forgot. So remember, there was a door with two double windows on either side, and they may have changed the windows on the left of the door. It's hard to tell, but they clearly cut a car size opening on the right. And it's hidden behind the W. Don't ask me what W stands for. Yeah, I know, but they weren't selling Volkswagens. They were selling Hupmobiles. Okay, so then it became, and there's an ad in the 1947 Westerly Sun, important notice, Holiday and Joyce. They've been forced out of their location across the street and they've moved to the Esso. And 2 years later, in 1949, they're advertising the opening of our new lubritorium, an auto laundry. I love the terminology, right? At the Esso, at the Holiday and Joyce Esso station. And here's a photo of that's in the book that the museum has put out showing the Holiday and Joyce. And on the left is a color slide that's undated, but Exxon as a brand comes in 1973. So that has to be 1973 or later for it to say Exxon. And notice the two large, the garage doors cut into it and the windows cut on the side of the building. So again, remember I said there were the three relatively small windows, two doors, and then another window. So very large openings were cut into this building that obviously contributed over to the years to the structural instability that developed. Later, it became Hoxie Buick. So this is a drawing of the Smith Granite Company buildings in 1898, and of course the store at Tower and Granite at the corner, and on the right, a photo of the opening when the stone was shipped here with Andrew Rogers, our chairman, and Tim Babcock, who's here, who's on our board. And thanks to Dion Lutzi and ServPro for donating the stone. Please go outside. If you go out the big entrance here and look to the right on